Hello everyone, and welcome back to Revisiting Archive. I'm thrilled to have you join us for the 9th installment of our series on Spanish history. Today, we're diving into the captivating yet tragic life of Charles II of Spain, the last Habsburg King of Spain, whose reign marked a significant turning point not only for Spain but for Europe as a whole. From his childless state and deteriorating health to the advisors who influenced him, and the geopolitical ramifications that followed his death. This episode promises to be a rollercoaster of intrigue, diplomacy, and dynastic drama. So sit tight as we delve into the life and legacy of Charles II of Spain. Charles II of Spain, often referred to as El Hechizado or the Bewitched, was a figure emblematic of decline, not just for his personal ailments, but for the Spanish Empire as well. Born in 1661, Charles II was the last of the Habsburg rulers, a dynasty that had dominated Spain for nearly 2 centuries. His reign from 1665 to 1700 was marked by a series of unfortunate events, debilitating health issues, a failure to produce an heir, and complex geopolitical maneuvering by European powers seeking to gain an upper hand in the anticipated Spanish succession. This video aims to explore these pivotal aspects that had contributed to Charles II's troubled reign and set the stage for the War of Spanish Succession. The Habsburg family was notorious for inbreeding, a strategy meant to keep power within the family, but one that led to a significant health problem. Charles II was no exception. Born from parents who were uncle and niece, his genetic makeup was compromised from the outset. The king suffered from the Habsburg jaw, a deformity that made it difficult for him to chew and speak. He also faced numerous other health issues, including epilepsy, severe digestive problems, and frequent infections. The deteriorating health of the monarch had a profound effect on governance. Charles II was often unable to attend state matters, leaving the responsibility to his advisors and Queen Regent. Moreover, his poor health was taken by many as a sign of divine displeasure, contributing to a sense of decline and melancholy that pervaded the Spanish court and filtered down to the public. By the end of his life, Charles II's physical and mental limitations had left him almost entirely incapable of ruling, creating a power vacuum and leading to a burgeoning crisis of succession. The story of Charles II's health is not just one of personal tragedy, but also an encapsulation of the decaying state of the Spanish monarchy. Spain, which had once been a powerhouse of the European continent, was by now a waning force, beset by financial difficulties, military defeats, and internal strife. Charles II's ill health can be viewed as both a symptom and a symbol of this broader decline. Charles II was married twice, first to Mary Louise of Orleans and later to Mariana of Neuburg. Both marriages were contracted with political aims in mind. Mary Louise was intended to bring France closer as an ally, while Mariana was seen as strengthening ties with Austria. Despite these political intentions, neither marriage produced the desperately needed heir to continue the Habsburg line of Spain. The failure to produce an heir had dire consequences for both Charles and Spain. Not only did it lead to questions about Charles' virility and capability, but it also catalyzed political maneuvering among the European powers. The Spanish crown was not just a national symbol, it represented control over extensive colonies in the Americas, as well as crucial territories in Europe, like the Spanish Netherlands and southern Italy. A vacant throne, therefore, had enormous geopolitical implications. The lack of a direct successor led to increasing tension both within Spain and across Europe. Within the Spanish court, factions began to form, advocating for various European princes to be named as the heir. The absence of a clear heir also increased the burdens on advisors and led to rampant speculation among European powers. This uncertainty destabilized the Spanish government, as various factions engaged in politicking to install their preferred candidate. The anticipated demise of Charles II without an heir created a political maelstrom in the 17th century Europe. Spain's extensive empire was too significant a prize to be ignored, and powers like France, Austria, and even England were maneuvering to put their candidates on the Spanish throne. The French Bourbons, through Louis XIV, sought to extend their sphere of influence by attempting to put one of their own in line for the Spanish crown. Austria, keen on maintaining Habsburg control over Spain, was equally proactive. Various treaties and agreements were floated in an attempt to preemptively divide vast Spanish empire and maintain a balance of power. For example, The partition treaties between France and England aimed to dispute Spanish territories in a manner acceptable to both. However, these efforts failed to reach any meaningful consensus, given that the Spanish were understandably averse to their empire being divided by foreign powers. As Charles II's health continued to deteriorate, the geopolitical jockeying intensified. The European powers understood that the Spanish question was not just about who would sit on the throne in Madrid, it was about the balance of power in Europe, just control of important trade routes, and the ideological battle between Catholicism and Protestantism. As such, alliances were made and broken. Treaties were signed and then ignored, and espionage and diplomatic intrigue became the order of the day. During his reign, Charles II had his circle of advisors who exerted considerable influence, given his physical and mental limitations. These advisors were sharply divided over the issue of succession. Some were loyal to the Habsburg family and advocated for an Austrian successor, while others were more Francophile and pushed for a Bourbon king. Yet others were pragmatic, looking for the candidate most likely to restore Spain's former glory. Factions within the court were not just ideological, they were also rooted in deeply personal loyalties and animosities. The Queen Regent, during Charles' minority, and later his two wives, had their preferences and biases, further muddying the waters. Advisors, nobles, and clergymen were often divided not just by their preferred candidates, but also by competing visions of what Spain could be, whether it should maintain its traditional Catholic orthodoxy or modernize and adapt to changing times. As Charles II neared the end of his life, his advisors took on increasingly critical roles. The influence of priests and confidants, who had the king's ear in his frail state, grew substantially. Various potential heirs were discussed, and intense debates ensued in the Spanish court. The advisors were well aware that they were not just deciding the fate of Spain, but potentially the balance of power in Europe. Aware of the geopolitical earthquake his death would cause, Charles II spent a considerable amount of time contemplating his will. His final choice was Philip of Anjou, a grandson of Louis XIV of France from the Bourbon family. This decision was influenced by the belief that a strong and stable France could better protect the territorial integrity of Spain's empire. However, Charles II included a critical caveat in his will. France and Spain would remain separate entities to prevent a Franco-Spanish superstate. The opening of Charles II's sealed will ignited immediate and intense diplomatic activity across Europe. France was understandably jubilant but treaded cautiously, aware that overt enthusiasm could trigger a continent-wide war. Austria felt snubbed. Considering this move as a betrayal of Habsburg legacy, England and other European powers were caught in the middle, not wanting to antagonize France but also wary of its rising power. England and other European powers were placed in a precarious position. They recognized the risks of a powerful Bourbon-controlled Spain, but were also loath to become embroiled in a potentially devastating war. Public opinion was divided, and political leaders faced the challenge of balancing their national interests with those of their respective alliances. The immediate effect of Charles II's will was a flurry of diplomatic negotiations and renegotiations. Countries revisited their alliances and treaties, seeking to either fortify or break them based on the new reality. It was clear that the peaceful transition of power in Spain was highly unlikely, given the competing interests and long-standing rivalries among European nations. This intense diplomatic activity eventually led to the formation of new alliances. The Grand Alliance, comprised of England, Austria, and the Dutch Republic, was one such coalition that formed with the objective of countering Bourbon expansionism. The ink had barely dried on these new agreements when it became apparent that diplomatic solutions had run their course. The various parties had drawn their lines in the sand, and the stage was set for the War of Spanish Succession. The opening salvos of the war were met with mixed feelings in Spain. While some saw it as a necessary evil to protect Spanish sovereignty, others viewed it as a disastrous conflict that would drain the already depleted Spanish resources. What was clear, however, was that the choices made during the reign of Charles II had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape Europe for decades to come. Charles II of Spain remains an enigmatic and tragic figure. His reign was marked by ill health, the inability to produce a heir, and the increasing encroachment of foreign powers eager to take advantage of Spain's weakening position. His advisors, though influential, were sharply divided and unable to provide a coherent path forward. Ultimately, Charles II's choices, especially his will, acted as the catalyst for the War of Spanish Succession, a conflict that will redraw the political map of Europe. His legacy, therefore, is one of decline and disorder, but it is also a cautionary tale. It serves as a reminder of the complexities of succession in monarchical systems and the geopolitical upheavals that can result from the death of a single ruler. The story of Charles II is not merely that of a man, but of an empire at the crossroads, teetering on the brink of a collapse, yet shaping the future of a continent in its final moments. And there you have it, folks, the complex and multifaceted story of Charles II of Spain, a monarch who became the fulcrum upon which the scales of European power were delicately balanced. His reign saw Spain grappling with decline, internal unrest, and a host of other challenges. However, the choices made during his rule had far-reaching implications, setting the stage for the War of Spanish Succession and reshaping the political landscape of Europe for years to come. Thank you so much for tuning into this 9th episode of our Spanish history series here on Revisiting Archive. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to learn more about pivotal moments in Spanish history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, this is Revisiting Archive, signing off. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and as always, keep revisiting the archive.